Saurabh, and you're listening to my favorite talk show, The Weekly Show with Aditya.
Aditya Digital Network presents episode 173 on the 24th of February 2020. We have three very special topics on the agenda tonight, ranging from the performance of the hockey team, the women's team beating hosts Australia in the opening match of the World T20 Championship, to the not so good performance by the cricket team for the Test World Cup. Stay tuned for this and more after the short break. Does the performance against Australia in the two matches raise the pedigree of the current hockey team? While they fought well against the like of Belgium and Netherlands, Australia was always going to be a litmus test for this talented Indian team. And looking at the performances in the two matches, it showed as to how far this Indian team had matured. After losing the first match by just one goal with a margin of 3-4, most Indian hockey teams in the past would have been deflated and would have lost all confidence. But it's no longer the case now. The second leg of the two-match series against Australia as a part of the World Pro Hockey League Championships, India rolled back by first equalizing the score at 2-all, not allowing Australia to dominate the match. This augurs well for the upcoming Olympics and the 2023 World Cup. This Indian team withstood the Aussie counter-attack, and now by squaring this second leg, the Australian leg of the Pro Hockey League Championship, it earns them 10 points in this tournament. There's still a lot to do for the team as they face teams like Spain, Britain, New Zealand and the others in the upcoming matches. Yes, despite all this memorable performance, one could still criticize the team for not converting penalty corners into possible goals. Let's not be too harsh on the team because no one expected the Indian hockey team to perform like this, to start the year 2020 like this in a positive manner that has made everyone stand up and applaud the performance and even follow them on various digital media websites, and also claim that the likes of S.V. Sunil, Rupinder Pal Singh, Manpreet Singh, Harmanpreet Singh may soon replace the likes of MS Dhoni, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Pujara and the others as the role models. Has been held by the fact that the Indian team's performance in New Zealand post the 20-over tournament has been deemed ordinary. I shall discuss this term ordinary at a later stage in this talk show, but back to the performance in this tournament so far. Since hockey is divided into 4 quarters of 15 minutes each, therefore each quarter's performance is deemed as separate and not as 2 halves of 30 minutes each. What is next for the hockey team? Which teams are they going to face next? World number 4 India now faces Germany in a couple of months time, and this will be a match away from home. Though in a sport like hockey, the terms home and away rarely make a difference. Hockey has always been about the skill of the player rather than the influence of the external conditions. With 10 points in hand, can the team be expected to carry on this momentum against the Germans? Yes, for me, this is the best hockey team that has ever played in the last 15 years. One doesn't achieve the world number 4 position in hockey rankings if you haven't done well over the past 10 to 15 years. Are there areas where the hockey team can work upon? I won't be so technical about things such as whether they need to work on their defense, their attack, or converting more penalty corners to a potential goal. All they need to do is carry on the momentum of the 6 matches played so far. This team has already done so much in the sport of hockey that expecting too much from them might be putting pressure on this current set of players. They are a matured lot and a memorable performance in the 2020 Olympics awaits them. And if they can conquer all the teams in this particular tournament, that would include the likes of Spain, Germany, and Britain, and New Zealand as the teams remaining, and they will carry the momentum into the Olympics as they are most likely to face these very teams again. And in a sport like hockey, it's all about momentum, all about carrying the momentum from the previous matches, despite the Pro Hockey League and the Olympics being like chalk and cheese. Once again, the question arises, can they counter the likes of Spain, Britain, Germany, New Zealand, and Argentina? In one word, yes. It would not be easy, but yes, this team has got the potential to do something previous teams have never done before. The world by beating the world's best teams. And when one does that, the performance of 2018 Asian Games and the 2016 Olympic Games might become an aberration. So from my side, I wish this team all the best in the coming tournaments. This ends part 1 of today's agenda. Stay tuned for part 2. Talking about memorable performances, what about the performance of the women's team in the opening match of the World T20 Championship? Not a single individual gave the Indian team a chance after they made only 132 runs against Australia. Everyone said that 132 runs are at least 15 to 20 runs short of a par score, and Australia has got the batters, the bowlers, the all-rounders to do the job, and they would chase this total down so comfortably that one wouldn't even know that this total even existed. But the predictability of a women's match came to the fore. Having watched enough women's matches, be it T20 or 50 overs, my analysis is that one cannot rule a team out just because they have made a low score. In a women's match, a total of 132 runs is equivalent to 165 plus runs scored in the men's division. The women's matches have a different character to the entire environment. Despite the Indian team's winning performance, I was disappointed by the quality of the pitch. The International Cricket Committee should look at how this pitch played, as this is an important factor in this sport called cricket. In the women's division, as we already know, ground dimensions are altered. What is usually a 70 to 80 meter boundary in the men's division becomes a 60 meter boundary in the women's division, and then the bowlers bowl so slow that by the time the ball reaches the batters, one would fall asleep. And this is exactly what the Indian spinner Poonam Yadav did. First to the batting part of the Indian team. Being the first match of a World Cup, both teams were nervous. Australia, by convention, won the toss and decided to chase. As is the case in the women's match, India got off to a flying start, getting to 40 runs in the first over, and there was a glimmer of hope that one might see a total of 200 being scored in a women's division match. But that didn't happen. The predictability of a women's match came into the fore rather fast. The first four overs saw 40 runs being scored. Then the bowlers did what they always do, squeezed the run rate. The next six overs saw only 24 runs being scored. Everyone began to panic. Could the Indian team reach that elusive total of 140? And as always, the fours and sixes were not coming freely from the bats of the Indian batters. But the most important thing was there was no collapse. So after the captain Harmanpreet Kaur got dismissed cheaply and early, the question was, do we have the batters? Do we have the firepower to take the team to a good total? Yet it was the likes of Deepti Sharma and Jemima Rodriguez who took the team to what was then deemed a below par score. As is the case, the first match of any World Cup is usually played by the home team, and the pressure around them and the hype created around the players is magnanimous. And the commentators spared no praise for the Australian women's team. Did this praise get to the team? Likes of Elise Perry, Meg Lanning, Lisa Healy, who are being talked about in such glowing terms that when the Indian team eventually beat Australia by a margin of 17 runs, it did shock the entire commentary box and the entire host nation. Format of this particular tournament is such that there are no second chances, no matches to be considered unimportant, no team can be taken lightly at this point in time. India will face Bangladesh today, and going by the events of the Junior World Cup, the Bangladesh team cannot be taken lightly. Spain may not intimidate the Bangladesh team as it did the Australian team and most of the Western nations. India will have to alter their plans against Bangladesh. So it means that if the situation is reversed and India is chasing a total between 130 and 140, no way will it be an easy chase. By design and default, the Bangladesh team will also release their spin bowlers. And going by the nature of how the women's division bowl, the Indian team would do better than to fall into this trap. So the question is, are we going to see a recap of what happened in 2016 when first the Junior World Cup was won by the West Indies team? This momentum got further transferred when the women's team won their first ever World T20 Championship, and then came the crowning moment, the hat trick. The men's team subsequently on the same night also won their second T20 World Championship. Will this happen again? Will we see what could be a shocker of the century? The Bangladesh men and women's division winning the 20 over World Championship. You never know, it may happen, but at this point, any team can win the World T20 Championship, at least at the women's division. If the women's team win tonight, then a place in the semi-final is almost secure, though they will have to go through the likes of New Zealand and Sri Lanka. Let's hope that they're able to conquer the Bangladesh team first and then carry on the momentum to the other two teams in New Zealand and Sri Lanka. So the buzz around the ground is that the teams like England, New Zealand, Australia, and up to some extent South Africa are the main contenders for winning the World Cup. India are not exactly the favorites to win the World Cup. they are not being put off either, but they are not in that favorites list as of now. They are at number 5 to win the world championship. But for me, they are at number 2. Because this year I expect a surprise from the South African team to go all the way. What does that mean? Can Quinton de Kock do what MS Dhoni did 13 years ago? Remember in 2007, after India were knocked out of the 2007 World Cup, and when the World T20 Championship started, the first ever World T20 Championship, India had a new look team. Wicketkeeper had become the captain. He was already a force in terms of being a player, but it was his first ever major tournament as a captain. And I see Quinton de Kock, the South African captain, in the same light. A very similar story. South Africa knocked out of the 50 over World Cup. Not exactly the most dominant performance by a South African team in a World Championship. Then Quinton de Kock is appointed as the captain. There is a personal change at the coaching and the management level. So much of similarity between these two teams 13 years apart. And anything is possible in a World Championship tournament. So let's wait and watch if the story of 2016 can be repeated. And those of you who feel that the story of 2016 can be repeated when the same team from the men's and women's division goes on to win the World Championships, email me your favorite teams. This ends part 2 of the agenda. Stay tuned for part 3. The ghost of 2002 past. It would be an affront to call the current Indian team's performance as ordinary and not living up to the expectation of being the number 1 team with the most points on the World Test Championship points. Let me give my listeners a history lesson. Those who may have forgotten a similar performance which happened 18 years ago. It's like a Xerox copy of the performance of the Indian team in 2002 which happened tonight. But most of my listeners would not be ready to accept this comparison I am about to give. As we all know, in this match, India made around 165 runs in the first innings with not much of a contribution from the Fab Four in Kohli, Pujara, Rahane, Agarwal and Vihari. But some individuals would ask, how dare I compare a performance of Kohli, Pujara, Rahane versus the performance of Rahul Dravid, Sachin Tendulkar, VVS Lakshman? Well, we can compare the performance, and it's a paradox that Lakshman and Sanjay Bangar, who were part of that humiliating loss, are today part of the commentary team. And they don't remember that they also went through this same stage, and then they have the audacity to question the current team on their poor batting performance. In an ideal world, it's not correct. I'm sure Lakshman and Bangar must have forgotten the performance they went through in this match, and then they wholeheartedly go after the performance of the Indian team. But then if a same performance is repeated, let's say 12 years from now, and the likes of Prithvi Shaw, Rishabh Pant, Shubman Gill are the players who go through this, it won't be a surprise if tomorrow the likes of Pujara and Rahane are called as experts. They would remember these things. People usually don't want to remember such traumatic incidents. But being sports person, one has to be empathetic. And since this was a deja vu performance, I will not be highly critical of the performance of the current team. Then the major difference between the team of 2002 and the team of 2020 is that nobody expected the team of 2002 to win, let alone have a dominating performance. The story around the team of 2020 is slightly different. Expect them to win, want them to win. There is this sudden attitude in the air that this team is different and more competitive from the teams in the past. There is the biggest change, the influence of digital media. Pseudo patriotism that travels through various social and digital media platforms. Yes, not many today would be willing to accept this comparison I just made. Knives would be out again. We know Mayank Agarwal and Prithvi Shaw were the openers in this match. In that match, it was Sanjay Bangar and Virender Sehwag. Mayank Agarwal played well by making 60 and 34 runs respectively. Shaw could not contribute much, though he tried his best. Don't be surprised if his technique comes into question. That match, Sehwag also failed miserably, and yet Sehwag still went on to play for another 10 years. Today you call Sehwag one of the greatest opening batters despite performances in some of the matches he played outside India. Can keep harping over the fact that we are missing Rohit